At Willow Creek Academy of the Arts, brilliance was currency. Tucked away in an affluent suburb outside of Boston, the academy had built its reputation over decades, producing world-class pianists, violinists, vocalists, and dancers. Its marble hallways and gleaming glass studios whispered of wealth and legacy. Students arrived each morning in sleek town cars, wore custom-tailored uniforms, and carried instruments that cost more than most family cars. Among them moved 14-year-old Sophia Morales, unnoticed. She didn't glide in on polished shoes or pull open the heavy oak doors with a name stitched onto her blazer. Sophia wore plain, well-worn shoes, and her uniform, though neat, had seen better days. Her father, Mr. Morales, was the head custodian at Willow Creek. Every dawn, before a single student arrived, he mopped the grand floors, polished brass railings, and wiped down the ivory keys in every practice room until they gleamed. Sophia often stayed late after school, sitting quietly in the hallways, her math homework balanced on her knees, waiting for her father's shift to end. She had grown up amid the echoes of piano scales and violin concertos. From the time she could crawl, Sophia had followed her father through the academy's halls, absorbing the sounds, the technique, the passion that vibrated through its very walls. It was one cold December afternoon, in the crescendo of winter, when fate intervened. The academy was preparing for its annual winter gala, an event of prestige where the most talented students performed before an audience filled with symphony directors, talent scouts, and donors. It was a night that could change a young artist's life. That afternoon, disaster struck. Amelia Kensington, the Academy's star second-chair violinist, had fallen ill unexpectedly. Without her, the planned quartet piece would be incomplete. In the grand rehearsal auditorium, Ms. Whitaker, the stern and often aloof orchestra director, paced anxiously. Her sharp heels clicked furiously against the polished floor. "We need a replacement," she snapped, her eyes scanning the assembled students. Panic buzzed among them. None of the backups knew Amelia's complex part. They had all been trained on different pieces. Tom was slipping away, and then Ms. Whitaker's eyes landed on Sophia. The girl had quietly slipped into the back of the auditorium, hoping to find her father. She sat small and unnoticed against the far wall, her backpack resting on her lap. Ms. Whitaker, exasperated, let out a dry chuckle. "You there? Custodian's kid," she barked, motioning Sophia forward. "Come," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Since you seem to enjoy loitering, why don't you earn your keep?" A ripple of stifled laughter moved through the students. Sophia stood slowly. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from something deeper, something wild and hidden. She approached as Ms. Whitaker shoved a second violin into her hands, the polished wood glowing under the fluorescent lights. "Let's see if you can even hold it properly," one boy whispered, loud enough for others to hear. "Play from measure 32, Ms. Whitaker instructed sharply, arms folded, expecting a disaster. Sophia closed her eyes for one heartbeat. The feel of the violin against her shoulder was not foreign. It was as familiar to her as the feeling of her own heartbeat. Her father had found a battered old violin discarded in a practice room years ago, its bridge cracked, strings worn to threads. He had given it to Sophia, and night after night she had taught herself in secret, listening through the walls, imitating the sounds she heard until they became hers. The bow touched the strings. The first notes sliced through the auditorium like a blade through mist. Clear, resonant, alive. Conversations died mid-sentence. Smirks fell away. Ms. Whitaker's brows rose so high they nearly touched her hairline. As Sophia played, her small frame seemed to grow. The bow moved with a fluidity that spoke of countless unseen hours. The piece's quick allegro demanded energy and precision, and she gave it both, with a vibrancy that made the music dance in the very air. When the last note floated up and disappeared into the rafters, a stunned silence filled the room. For a full, aching moment, no one moved. Then applause erupted, genuine and loud. Even the students who had chuckled earlier were clapping now, some even cheering. One senior violinist leaned over to another and whispered, "She's better than half our soloists." Ms. Whitaker approached, her face unreadable. Where did you learn to play like that?" she asked, her voice a mix of wonder and disbelief. Sophia shifted the violin carefully in her hands. "My father found a broken violin," she said simply. "I fixed it. I listened. I practiced. Just then, Principal Harrington, who had been passing by and stopped upon hearing the unexpected music, stepped into the auditorium. He had seen it all: the scoffing, the challenge, the transcendence. "Miss Morales," he said, his voice carrying through the silent hall, "how would you feel about becoming a full scholarship student at Willow Creek?" A collective gasp went through the students. Sophia's father, who had been lingering unnoticed near the doorway, his work clothes dusty, wiped his eyes quickly with the back of his hand. "Yes, sir," Sophia said, her voice steady. "I would love that." Ms. Whitaker, cheeks burning, nodded stiffly. She had set out to humiliate a janitor's daughter. Instead, she had uncovered a rare and brilliant talent. From that day, everything changed for Sophia Morales. She was no longer just the custodian's daughter. She was a musician, respected and admired, not out of pity, but for her breathtaking skill. She practiced daily in the grand halls she had once only wandered. Her uniform remained simple, but now she wore it with quiet pride. Teachers who had once barely acknowledged her now called her by name, inviting her to master classes, asking for her insights on compositions. Her classmates, at first awkward, grew to admire her grit. Sophia had not been handed a thing. She had earned it, note by note, hour by hour, in the silent margins of the school. Ms. Whitaker, changed by the experience, became one of Sophia's strongest advocates. She never again judged a student by the brand of their shoes or the prestige of their surname. She learned, through Sophia, that true artistry knew no boundaries of class or wealth. Sophia's father, meanwhile, continued to walk the halls early each morning. But now, he did so with his head held higher, knowing that within those polished rooms, his daughter was creating music that would someday shake the world. And so, Sophia Morales, the janitor's daughter, grew into one of the most celebrated talents Willow Creek Academy had ever seen. Not because she was lucky, not because someone gave her a handout, but because within her burned something no money could buy, a passion so fierce, so true, it turned every limitation into a stepping stone. Years later, when Sophia stood center stage at Carnegie Hall, bowing before a thunderous standing ovation, she thought of the dusty old violin, the echo of student laughter, the scuffed shoes, and her father's steady hands mopping marble floors in the dawn light. She closed her eyes, placed her bow to the strings, and played not for the critics, not for the accolades, but for the little girl who once waited quietly in the hallways, believing that maybe, just maybe, she belonged there too. And in that moment, the music soared, pure, undeniable, and free.